This is a video that will explain the circle of fifths. The circle of fifths is a sophisticated way to see how the different keys relate to each other. To explain it, we're going to start by looking at the key signatures and how they progress through a different series of intervals. We'll start with C major. C major has no flats and no sharps. Now, if we start to move through the sharps, we know that the first sharp is F sharp, and that one sharp, F sharp, is the key signature for G major. If we move on to the next sharp key, adding a sharp, we'll add one sharp each time. We have two sharps, F sharp and C sharp, which is the key signature for D major. You take the last sharp, which is T, and you go up a half step to Do. Now we will add the third sharp, F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. G sharp is T, bringing us to Do, which is A. Moving on to four sharps, F, C, G, D, which brings us to E major. Now let's stop for a moment and examine what we see. We see the pattern of adding a sharp each time we move from one key to the next. Let's look at the relationship between those keys. C major has no flats or sharps. G major has one sharp. The relationship intervallically between C and G is a perfect fifth. When we add the second sharp, we go from one sharp to two sharps. We move to the key of D major, and the relationship intervallically between G and D is a perfect fifth. When we add the third sharp, we move to the key of A major, and the relationship in terms of the interval between D and A is, you guessed it, a perfect fifth. We add the fourth sharp, we move to the key of E major. The relationship between A and E is a perfect fifth. Now let's see if the pattern works. If the pattern works, E to the next note up, which would be a perfect fifth, is a B. Let's see if that's what happens. We're going to have five sharps now, F, C, G, D, and A. Bingo! It is the key of B major. A fifth above B is F sharp. Let's see if we get to the key of F sharp major by adding the sixth sharp. F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, and E sharp. A half step above E sharp, which remember E sharp is a half step above E, which would bring you to F. A half step above that is F sharp. So yes, indeed, we get to F sharp major. So we're going to run out of sharps in a minute. We could add one more, but we're going to consider this F sharp to be what we call the hinge. F sharp is the enharmonic equivalent of G flat. So I'm going to write G flat here. And the key signature for G flat is B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and C flat. We've gone from six sharps to six flats. We're staying enharmonically the same. We've moved from F sharp to G flat. Now, if the pattern continues and we're on a G flat and we're continuing to move up a fifth, then the next key would logically be D flat. Instead of adding flats, though, we're going to take flats away. So we've six flats here in the G major, the six flats here. Now we're going to move to five flats. B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, and G flat. And you know that the rule for determining flat key signatures is that it is the penultimate or second to last flat. which in this case is D flat. And here we are at D flat major. Let's see what happens when we take away another flat. So this time we will have only 4 flats. This is the key signature for A flat major, and the relationship between D flat to A flat is, bingo, a perfect fifth. A perfect fifth above A flat is E flat. If we continue to take flats away, we would only have 3 flats this time: B flat, E flat, and A flat. E flat's the penultimate flat, so this is the key signature for E flat. Now we're down to 2 flats, B flat and E flat. And the penultimate flat in this case is B flat, which is a fifth above E flat. We take one more flat away, we get to 1 flat, B flat, which is the key signature for F major, which is in fact a fifth above B flat. And the last key signature, taking it away, would bring us back to C major. The relationship between F and C is a perfect fifth. This can be put in a circular connection where you can see the relationship of all of the keys by adding the sharps and taking the flats away and creating what's called the circle of fifths. Because as you go from key signature to key signature, adding a sharp, you'll notice that you're moving up, in each case, a perfect fifth. As you continue around the circle, that's exactly what happens. You move through the hinge places. B or C flat major, they're enharmonically equivalent. G flat and F sharp are enharmonically equivalent. D flat and C sharp are enharmonically equivalent. And we start to take the flats away, and you continue all the way around the circle till you get back to C. On the inside of the circle of fifths, for those of you who have figured out minor keys, you'll see that it lists also the minor key relationships. An interesting correlation can be drawn to colors. The reason that these keys are connected and to look at this way is because it shows how they relate. The key of C major and G major and D are sort of like a family. They're close together. The further away you get from C, the less of a relationship it has with it, and the more strange it might sound if you're composing a piece of music and deciding to modulate. And if you'll notice, directly opposite of each key, you will find a key that is, in fact, related as a tritone, which is the most dissonant of all intervals. C to G flat or F sharp is a tritone. If you were moving along in tonal music in the key of C major and abruptly moved to the key of G flat or F sharp major, it would sound crazy. The same thing happens if you go across all the way for each of the intervals. A natural is directly across from E flat. The key of A major is directly across from the key of E flat. The relationship between A to E flat is a tritone. So these keys are exactly the opposite of each other. If you've taken Arts Foundation or an art class here at NMH, you have seen the color wheel, and you know that it progresses through colors that are related as it goes around. Directly across the wheel from each color is the color that is considered to be the complement, or the color that fights the most with that color, the one that is the strongest in terms of its oppositional. The colors on this wheel are not ideal, but it gives you a sense of it. It reinforces the same thing, that C major would be the complement to F sharp or G flat major because they're tritones, two strong things that would fight with each other. When you're asked to replicate the circle of fifths, what you'll be asked to do is to show the relationship as it goes up, adding each of the sharps and then deleting each of the fifths. Each of the flats that show that you progress from C to G to D to A to E. So it's really not that you need to memorize C, G, D, A. You just need to know that you start with no flats and no sharps, then you add a sharp, then you add 2 sharps and 3 sharps, and since you all know the key signatures, the thing you need to memorize is that at G flat and F sharp and harmonic equivalents, you need to move to the 6 flats, and then you start taking the flats away.